All right. So this is the third installment and interview of the Forget Perfect newsletter leader interview. And I am excited to welcome Kristia Worthy with us. She is the manager for talent acquisition at Yum Brands. And so Kristia, welcome. I'm excited to have you.
Hello, hello. I am just thrilled to be here and really looking forward to what we get to talk about, but also connecting and chatting with you.
Yeah. All right. So for all the listeners, tell us a little bit about yourself and your leadership journey.
Yes, thank you for that question. I feel like I've had a very unique leadership journey that had some twists and turns in all the right places that really helped me get to where I am today. So I remember, as a child, you have these big dreams and aspirations, and this is going to sound very silly. I wanted to be a businesswoman. I wanted to wear those polished suits and heels to work every day.
Yeah.
I wanted to be in charge and to run things. And I remember when I first got to college, I was majoring in accounting because I love math. And then I took a couple computer classes and I was like, wait, this is not fun. Like, I want to engage more with people. I really want to help people grow.
Mhm.
And that really helped shift, my perspective of like, what do I actually want to do when I get older? Um, you have a plan and things change, but
Right.
just to kind of share some background about who I am. I currently work at Yum Brands, where I oversee talent acquisition, which is our recruitment strategy, as well as our employer branding. So making sure people know about Yum Brands and that they have that organization as their employer of choice. I grew up as a military brat. So my dad was in the army and I moved around a whole lot. When I was younger, I did not really appreciate it, but as I got older, it really helped me being okay with change and
Yeah.
be willing to be vulnerable, to make those connections with people and to establish, my tribe. So that, and then even the way how my father parented kind of helped, build some good like leadership capabilities, like such as discipline and, high standards. And we can dive deeper into like how the high standards has like transferred
Yeah.
into, work and parenting. But growing up as a military brat, I don't really have a hometown. I just say that I'm from the world, but I do
Yeah.
have places where my family is located on the East Coast as well as the Midwest. But a lot of changes. I thought I wanted to be a teacher, then I thought I wanted to be a higher ed professional, which really landed me into working in corporate HR because I was on this journey of figuring out what is my why and what is my purpose. Personally, though, I've learned to embrace all my identities. I used to be a workaholic, still kind of am, but just tapping more into like the other pieces of me. I am married. I've been married for about a little like 4.5 years now. I am the mother of two boys who I call the Ratty Bros. I'm also expecting my third child in like a month. And then just making sure I find time to do things that bring me joy. So I love reading. I've recently started doing dance classes,
Oh,
but
fun.
also just having that intentional time with my loved ones is really important to me.
Yeah. And I think you do a really good job with that intentionality and setting your priorities and following through. I've always really loved watching you do that, and it's been impressive.
Thank
So let's
you.
let's dive into leadership. Like, what does the
Yes.
term leadership mean to you?
Yes, that's an excellent question. And, as you grow and you start to learn more, you start to really understand what that definition is. And currently, where I'm at, like in my current state of life and professionalism, leadership is all about empowering and advocating. Right. So it's where you learn to really focus on the we instead of the me.
Yeah.
I've learned, especially as I, lead different teams, that it's not about what I accomplish, it's about what we can accomplish. And in order to do that, you really have to be able to motivate your team, motivate your squad to, do their best work and show up as their best self. But you also want to empower them. So as I grow, I should be bringing those folks with me and helping them grow and reach their full potential. So it's definitely all about, how do you influence the people around you to align on a certain vision and strategy and then move forward and do your best work?
Yeah. I love that. What core values guide you as a leader?
Yes, I love talking about core values. And some people may think, well, shouldn't your core values stay the same all the time? I'm like,
Mm-mm.
there might be some connections, but as you go through different stages, and I'm sure for you as well, your values have shifted, right?
Yes, they're
Um,
seasonal.
it is very seasonal. So I try to tell folks, don't get so caught up on things remaining the same.
Yeah.
Adjust where you need to go, as you go through your different stages of life. So currently right now, I do have core values, which I really use as my anchor that keeps me grounded in my compass and figuring out which direction that I
Yeah.
go in. The first one now is family, right? Like if you would have asked me maybe 10 years ago, I love my family, but I would
Yeah.
say that it wasn't one of my core values because I just had myself.
Right.
Now that I have additional responsibilities and people that I do life with on a daily, I have to keep my family at the
Yeah.
center of what I do. And especially being a mother, that was the biggest shift in identity I've ever had of really trying to, okay, my professional has always been top of mind, but now I have my family. So how can I don't want
Yeah.
to say balance that out, but how can I make that work? So family is definitely one of my core values. Also, inclusion. I want to make sure any space that I occupy that people feel as though they belong, that they can be their authentic self, that they can have the courage to speak up and share things. So I'm so intentional around just building communities where people just feel as though that they're seen, they're valued, and they're heard.
Love that.
Um, and this last value it was very hard for me to define it. And I've learned that when you're in situations and maybe you're triggered by something or just things are not going well, I had a situation where I was just like, why do I have such a big issue with what's happening? And it was an attack on my values. And I didn't know exactly which one, but it made me realize that respect is one of my
Okay.
core values, right? So
Yeah.
if I'm not getting respect, and I know that, it could be earned or it's definitely based upon your actions. When I don't see respect, whether it's towards me or even other people,
Yeah.
it triggers me. Like it makes me one, I am the queen of standing up for strangers. I
Love it.
probably need to mind my own business. But when I see disrespect or I feel as though I'm not receiving respect, um, that's an issue for me. So
Yeah.
now that I know what that is, I can at least put a name to it and be more aware as I approach different situations.
Yeah, most definitely. And how do you think those core values have influenced how you lead?
Yes. Oh my goodness. First, as I think about family, that's another component that people may not get to see when they first interact with me. So it really helps me with as I lead others, me take into consideration that whole person, right? You are not just your work identity. So how do I get to know you more so I can support you and lead you in a way that will drive you towards success? So it really helps me see a person for who they are and not just their role. For inclusion, I'm just very mindful of the way how I interact with people, the way how I communicate, uh, still getting to know them more so I can make sure that they feel good and feel like they're a part of the team. It just requires extra effort that I'm always willing to put time and
Right.
energy into. Then for respect, it just I know how it could feel when you're not respected. I know how it could feel when you just don't feel like people are hearing you. So just keeping my values at top of mind and everything that I do and my actions and how I spend my time and how I don't spend my time. How do I support my team?
Yeah.
But I also know that values are different from person to person. So I love asking, the team that I work with, the team that I oversee, like, what are your core values? What are your workplace core values? What are your
Right.
overall core values? So It's definitely something that's really important, that from a self-awareness standpoint, that you need to have that from a leadership perspective, so you don't go astray and start doing things that, don't align with your values.
Yeah, totally. What do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions about leadership?
Yes. Okay, so I would first start with my biggest misconception is that people think that in order to be a leader, it has to be a part of like your title or your position. And I always emphasize that everyone is a leader, regardless of the role that you have, because you have this power of influence, right? So it's really up to you to determine how do you use that influence to your best ability, but also to the benefit of those around you. So it doesn't matter if you've been in on an organization, team for 10 years and you're the CEO, or maybe you're in an entry level position. The CEO and the entry level, the intern, the graduate student, they are leaders too. So really recognizing that at an early stage
Yeah,
can really help, align, what you're known for, align with your personal brand, aligns with your performance. So just keep that in mind. One other last thing that I always think is important is sharing, the more that I get into my career and I talk with different people, some folks really think that in order to be a leader, you have to be an extrovert. You have to be this
nope.
loud person, right? You have to be, always out there, always, No, there are leaders who we all lead differently, right?
Right.
So whether you enjoy talking to people, whether you like to be more behind the scenes, leaders can happen in any shape or form, and you don't have to be an extrovert to do that. So just finding, the best ways how people can lead instead of trying to define like this model picture of exactly what a leader is, because that doesn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think are some of like the most like critical skills or qualities that leaders need to thrive right now? Right. We've got this kind
Mm,
of ever evolving workplace.
yes.
So what do you think they are?
Oh, goodness. That is really important. I'm glad that you brought that up, because if we think about, how the world has changed in the last 5 years, and what really stands out to me, and I was just talking to someone this morning at like a coffee meeting about, the hybrid workplace and being able to be flexible,
Right.
and how, when people come to work, if they need to come to work, what time they come into work. So it's really important for leaders to embrace and be okay with the change in how things are. We
Right.
can't continue to do the things that we used to do all the time. You have to take in consideration, the climate, what's happening. So even right now, I was talking with someone about how, like, yeah, I remember I was making sure I was at work every day by 8:30, not a minute late. If I was a minute late, I was like tiptoeing to get into my
Yeah.
office, staying exactly to 5, not leaving early. But now we have the opportunity to really help people navigate their workplace in a way that does allow them to have more flexibility, that allows them to have more, access, more time to juggle their multiple hats they may wear within their family or within
Right.
their personal life. So, embracing that hybrid mentality. Um, do you really need to be at work from 8 to 5 exactly every single last minute? Like,
Right.
if you're done, is there flexibility for you to leave early, or even, log in later on that night, as long as you're still getting your work done, you're building results. It's just, you just have to be flexible. And then even if you think about the new generations that come in, people value and they want different things.
Right.
So making sure you're tapped into that and having an open mind to address that is really, really important as a leader.
Well, and that's interesting. So, especially as the manager for talent acquisition, what are you seeing are the biggest needs of this newest generation in the workplace?
Oh, I love this question. I'm definitely seeing more of employees wanting to be developed and invested in, right?
Okay.
So they want to know if they come to a company, what does that growth potential look like? Whether it's, how do I increase in my rank? How do I increase in my responsibility? And they want things to happen at a faster pace,
I
right?
know.
I know in the past, someone would be completely fine doing their role for 10 years and not there be any movement. Now it's like, okay, where do I see myself in the next 2 to 3 years? Where do you see me being? What is my greatest potential
Right.
that I can have? So people want to grow, they want to learn, they also want that flexibility. So
I know.
whether they're working, 100% remote or, they have hybrid, they're able to take PTO and actually be able to fully check
I
out and not
know.
have to worry about checking the email. So it's really important that, people in the work area that I'm in, we just stay attuned and we maintain that connection with, rising graduates and know, what they're looking for because we want to be the employer of choice. We want people to come to our company, but if we're not willing to adjust and adapt based upon the needs of our current workforce, then we'll just miss out on a bunch of talent. So just making sure we're thinking about those things,
Yeah.
we're being innovative, and we just don't get in our own ways by being stuck in our ways.
Right. Yeah. And I felt like um, this newest generation in the workplace like really values the quality of life.
Yes.
And sometimes more than money, right? Like that quality of life is important. So again, that PTO, the flexibility, work from home, all that stuff. So, um, I mean, I'm generalizing, but those are some of the themes that I feel like I've seen.
Yeah, I definitely agree that that overall holistic wellness is
Yeah.
really important. Being able to relax on the
Yeah.
weekends. And one thing that I really love about my company that we've done, we actually have days that are called Live Well Days. And these
Okay.
are days in addition to your PTO that you have, where about 5 times out from the year, we're all off from work. So having
Oh,
like those live well days, we like to call them
yes.
recharge days too, where you literally can do whatever you want. And, we'll often talk about like, how are you spending your live well day? And,
Yeah.
some will say they're going to read a book or get a massage or clean up their house. But just making sure that like you have those resources available to address what those needs are.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So you've attended several of my overcoming perfectionism trainings and workshops, and many of them I did at Yum at the Grow Yourself event. And so before we talk about what overcoming perfectionism looks like, I'd love to just know, like, kind of prior to that workshop, how was your perfectionism holding you back in your leadership role?
Oh my. And I used to always say, like, my friends would, get on me about I'm always doing something or
Yeah.
I'm doing the most. I don't know how to sit down. And I was like, well, I just have high expectations for myself. Like, I will be juggling
Yeah.
so much and doing so much that I continue to say, oh, it's just the high expectations that I have. And even as I think about the identities that I hold as like a Black woman. I think about the challenges that Black people face, in life where you feel as though you have to work, 10 times as hard. You can't have any errors. You have to be perfect.
Right.
And then you think about as a woman, the challenges that you face, especially in male dominant career fields. It's like now I have that pressure. So I've always dealt with this pressure to always seem like I have myself together, always feel like I'm getting things done at the best quality in the fastest time. And I really felt like that was normal. I thought that it was
Yeah.
okay to be stressed out. It's okay to be, overly committing myself,
Yeah.
to something. And I remember and it was so crazy how the stars aligned. I started seeing a therapist
Right.
um, shortly before your workshop. And I talked about, of course, your therapist wants to get to know you. They want to know
Yeah.
like what's happening. And, I would talk about, yeah, I've always just been like this high achiever. That's just naturally,
Yeah.
who I am. I've always felt like I needed to have it all together. And I think about the standards that were placed on me like as a child. Like
Mhm.
my dad expected excellence. My other family members expected excellence. So I was that student that was getting all A's like all the time, like busting my butt. And that's just always what I felt like was the expectation.
Right.
So as I started to really dive more into who I am, as I started to evolve my identity as like a mother, as a wife, I'm like, why do I have these? Like, what is really getting in my way of why I feel so burnt out? I feel so exhausted. I feel as though, maybe I'm not good enough at times. And then my therapist was like, oh, well, have you thought about perfectionism? And I'm like, no. Not really. And I promise you, it had to be about, it was literally within like a week or two period. Then you came to Yum and
Yeah.
we had the workshop on perfectionism. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is
Yeah.
exactly
The stars
what
aligned.
all of it aligned. And my mind was just blown. And I was like, wow, this is a condition that I have that I should not have, but where did it come from? Why does it exist?
Yeah.
How can I make my life better by overcoming it? So it was a really aha moment because I just always maxed it as like, I'm a high achiever. That's just how I am. But once I started pulling back the layers and getting into the why, I'm like, this is very unhealthy. This isn't healthy. It's stressing me out. It's not allowing me to be my best self. I'm projecting on other people my perfectionism
Yeah.
and, wanting them to be that same way when I shouldn't be doing that for my own well being and also for the sake of like the relationships that I have between like, friends and partners and even like family members as well.
Right. So how is kind of this recognition of your perfectionism, even some of the tools like, because you and I talk
Yeah.
anyway, and I
Yeah.
can't not talk about perfectionism because it's what I live and breathe. Um, so how do you think just kind of this recognition of your own perfectionism? I feel like I've been able to see you put tools into place where you're again prioritizing your seasonal values,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like you're
Yeah.
really, your core values are important over perfectionism, like you're just more intentional, like there's like a present and a better
Yeah.
like slowness and presence about you.
Yeah. Oh, what a good question. And I'm so appreciative of the work that you do and how you educate so many people because there's so many folks that are dealing with this and not even know that they
I know.
are. So it is just, you know, one of the sayings that I live by is like when you know better, you do better,
Yeah.
right? So it's like now that I know that perfectionism exists in my life and it's something that is potentially, wearing me out and, affecting like my mental health, my physical health, it really has, caused me to slow down. It really has caused me to really think about my values, right? So if I think about like perfectionism from like keeping my house clean all the time, I would
Right.
go crazy trying to make sure everything looks perfect. I would stay up, spend so much energy cleaning, and then it's like, okay, well, now I'm a mom. Is things are going to
Right.
be out of place. So I've had to really like evaluate like how important is it for me to have things presented as being perfect and is it worth that extra energy? So it's really asking myself those internal questions and
Yeah.
getting to the root of the why and also just alleviating some of the pressures that I personally put on myself that
Right.
others are not natural, they're not doing that. So it's really me being, mindful of my self-talk, And also, what are my expectations? What are my realistic expectations?
Right.
And allowing myself to use that energy in other places where I can show up authentically, right? You think
Yeah.
about people asking you, oh, how are you doing today? We're always like, oh, I'm good. Like, things are great. And now I'm like, I'm more truthful.
Yeah.
Like, I'm okay. Like, even when you and I chatted earlier, I was like, I am a walking hot mess express. Like,
Yeah.
it
You're like, I'm
helps.
4 weeks out.
Yeah, 4 weeks out from delivering, my back
Yeah.
hurts. Like, I don't really want like it. It just helps you just be more authentic. It
Right.
helps with the way how you connect with people, your vulnerability, because if people only see you as this perfect individual who doesn't have any flaws, it makes them want to like project perfectionism more. So it has really helped me with just being more real and authentic around, who I really am, what's going on. When I admit making mistakes all the time, especially with my team. So I normalize that. Like my
Yeah.
expectation is not you being perfect, is you really making that progress every day to just be your best version.
Right.
And sometimes that best version is not perfect and it's okay. Like that's not anything that is expected. And one of the things that you say that has really resonated to me is your one day or day one,
I
right?
know.
When are you going to make that change? Oh yeah, one day, and you
For
just keep
day
saying
one.
that, yeah, every day. One day I'll get there. But just committing to that day one has really helped me, with overcoming perfectionism.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
All right. So let's go back to things that let's go back to leadership.
Okay.
What is like one piece of advice that you would give to aspiring leaders?
Ooh. Hmm. So many nuggets to choose from. One piece of advice that I would give to aspiring leaders is to be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
We are often our biggest critic, and as we think about our mindset and the self talk that we have, we can prevent ourselves from getting somewhere even before we even actually get to be there, right? You have
Yeah.
these conversations in your head. So, and a lot of times we're saying things like, oh, I can't do that, or maybe right now is not enough time, or I shouldn't take that risk. I don't have those qualifications, or they wouldn't even consider me. Be kind to who you are and really mind, and it's another journey I've been on, is over mindset. Mind your mindset. Know what you're saying to yourself, know how you're talking to yourself, and really be intentional around speaking life and
Yeah.
opportunity. Because if you are criticizing yourself all the time, it really gets in your way of being able to grow as a leader. And as a leader, you have to take chances, you have to take risks, you have to be courageous. So just be kind to yourself and be more aware of how you're talking about yourself when it comes to just being more uplifting instead of like beating yourself down. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that, Kristia. Okay, that was beautiful. Thank you. I want to
Oh,
thank you so much for your time today.
oh, no
It's been
problem.
amazing to watch your leadership journey, and I'm excited for what's in store for you, both personally and professionally, and all the people's lives that you get to impact. They're so lucky. So thank you so much for being on the Forget Perfect newsletter interview. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me and us being able to have this conversation. It always brings me joy being able to connect with people
Yeah,
and, talk about leadership and, my, overcoming perfectionism and how I've managed that. So thank you
yeah.
for the work that you do and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much.